Welcome to What We Made Possible, the podcast where we explore the power of healing and driving change for advocates, leaders, and change makers. The conversations here draw the connection between creating new possibilities in the world, possibilities of care, of belonging, of thriving for our communities, with stories of personal healing and loving relationship building. I'm your host, Patty Daylight, leadership coach for social change. I spent a decade in nonprofits, government, and DEI, securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for communities of color. And I've experienced firsthand the transformative power of compassion, healing, and belonging in making a bigger impact. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What We Made Possible. Today, I am super excited to be talking to Malia Wright. She is a trauma-informed people and culture embodiment expert, specializing in embodied movement, collective trauma healing, somatic human design, and Ayurveda. Through consulting, coaching, and workshops, Malia combines curiosity and mindfulness to support personal and collective healing. Named by colleagues the Queen of Nuanced, she helps organizations and individuals create inclusive, adaptive environments that foster authentic connection, resilience, and well-being. Welcome, Malia.
Hello, welcome to you, to your own podcast. So happy to be here.
Yeah, so happy to be here with you. I'm been thinking about all of our conversations, and I'm super excited to have one kind of like in public like this. And we've already been chatting for like an hour and a half before this, just so y'all know. So we're here today to talk about being at the edge of change and being at the edge of transition. And we're in a very particular like collective moment in our country right now. Malia, how would you describe this moment?
Well, this is like a little bit of an internal giggle, but it was just making me think about, remember in the pandemic when everyone's like, these are unprecedented times. And then everyone's just been saying that this is like, now it's the joke, right? These are unprecedented times. Like, I can't believe the times. This is the end of times. This is the chaotic times. And sometimes I'm like, when has it not been that? And there are waves, there are times when we move through these waves, but right now, again, uncertainty, again, distress, chaos. Of course, there's the familiarity of what's happening right now with ICE in this country and the homes and with your neighbors and your family members. And it's not even adding what's happening globally. But I think there's something that's really interesting about these times are uncertain. I think right now people are overwhelmed. I think people are burnt out, as always. I think people are stressed. People are in survival. People are trying to move on to the next thing and not knowing exactly how to move to the next thing. So we're really in a tender time, but I think it's always a tender time, depending on what you're listening to.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I think that like for the people who I work with, and I'm assuming as well the people that you work with, there's that tenderness, but also that depending how close we are to, for example, Minnesota or LA or New York or like anywhere where ICE is like really present, if it's not part of our kind of like everyday reality, we are still seeing it on our screens, right? The same way we have been seeing Palestine, the same way we've been seeing what's happening in other parts of the world. And the folks that I work with are all trying to also create change in their own communities, right? Like, it's not like they're kind of going to work and just trying to expand shareholder value or whatever. Like, they're doing something that like they want to be doing and feel like they are contributing, but that burnout is so hard when you're witnessing all of these things or your community is at risk and you're seeing all of this harm. And then you're also trying to like make a difference in the world. Like it's a really, it's a really hard, like emotional labor to carry.
Yeah. Something that this is reminding me of is I live in Pasadena, and I'm like North Pasadena in California. And it's very close to Altadena, and that's where the Eaton fire was last year in January. We just came up on the year anniversary, and I did not lose my home, but I had my community severely impacted. And I remember last year, so it was January, the fires had happened. One of my best friends lost her home. We had other friends lose their homes. Our favorite cafe no longer was there. And then the inauguration happened. And I would do work in DEI. And then everyone's like, can't do DEI anymore. And then I was like, oh, like everything. I mean, that was just within a month of last year. And I remember at that time feeling like, how am I supposed to move forward? How am I supposed to move beyond this edge right now where I'm actually just uncertain if I can touch the soil outside or breathe the air because of the toxicity? And I just remember at that time feeling like there are only a few things that I can hold. And there's this idea as human beings that I think it's hard for us to understand capacity, what our capacity to hold something is. And I reflect on this a lot because when we're thinking about what do I have capacity to hold, that's not the initial thought, right? Like, Patty, have you ever been in a situation where someone's like, you got to focus on this and this and this and this and this. And what do you do at that point?
You freeze.
You freeze.
Yeah. That's where I'm at in this moment.
Right.
There's so many things
exactly. You're like, okay, you gotta call Congress, and you gotta go feed your neighbors, and you gotta
you gotta donate to mutual aid, and you gotta show up to work, and you gotta do the dishes, and you gotta make sure that like you know the names of everyone who is impacted and all of
and you gotta take care of your dog that just had surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your kid has a cold and you got to go pick them up from school. And so there's this interesting phenomena as human beings. And like, I don't think anyone's free from this. It's like, I don't understand capacity. And it's overwhelming because it's so much information. And how do we mobilize? How do we move when everything is saying now? Now.
Well, I'm curious how you think about capacity, especially as the somatic practitioner, because I feel like the other side of now is spiritual bypassing, which is like shut off your phone, don't watch the news, only like all you got to do is like pay attention to what's right in front of you. Like you don't have to do any of that. Like take care of yourself. And completely shut down. And that also doesn't feel like capacity.
Yeah, that's so true. It's a lot of avoidance. Mm-hmm. I actually have a really perfect example of this, and I'm going to use myself as an example. So I've been on a fertility journey for just over 4 years, and my fertility doctor about last year said, Malia, whatever you need to do, reduce as much stress as possible. This was like January. January 2025. Reduce as much stress as possible. And I remember how much guilt I felt. Because I noticed what was feeling really stressful at the time was like me holding so much. I was holding so much in my work, holding space for my friends, my colleagues, people that I work with, the communities that I work with, in the disability community, in the healing around racialized trauma community. I was holding so much, and I have so many thoughts about capacity specifically, but maybe I'll focus in this one area. But I remember saying to my husband, I said, I think I need to get off the news because it's not even like I'm looking at the information and absorbing it and processing it and then having action from it. It was more like doom scrolling. Like, oh my gosh, okay, here's another, here's another, here's another, here's another, here. Everything is proving the problem. And I said to my husband, will you, and I asked him if he had capacity because he's very, informed, I'll say. And I said, will you let me know anything that's really important that I need to know? And he said, yeah, I have capacity for that. And he said, I will be your news source. And it really actually taught me something, two things. One thing about asking for support when you are in a doom spiral. Like I was in a doom spiral. The other thing is I noticed how much work I was also doing for the community. The circles that I was holding, the spaces that I was engaged with, like I was having many frequent conversations around what's happening in the world, how are we transitioning, what are we doing? The only thing that changed was I wasn't scrolling and looking at the news. And so one of the things that really became clear to me in this moment was we're all going to go through different waves. If we burn hot and fast quickly, of course, we're going to burn out. But I'm trying to find that simmer that is like a little ember, the little flame that keeps going, that sustains and sustains, which means how are we tuning into our friends? How are we tuning into our community? Like if I have a friend that's saying, I am like so depressed, I'm so stressed, I'm so frozen, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm like, hey, let me take care of you. Let me tune into you. Let's talk about this in a supportive way. Let me carry that for you. And then there might be times when I'm like, I can't, girl. Like, we are having a mentee bee, right? And it's like I need support. And what I'm doing with my hands right now is kind of like one hand is lifting up and coming up, and then one hand is going down, and then it's switching. Like noticing how we take care of each other and resource together so that we can sustain this good work that we're so passionate about. Now, where spiritual bypassing comes in is when we say, I don't want to do the levels. I don't want to tap into this at all. It's only good vibes, right? We're not focusing on the hard things, and I'm going to avoid this completely. That's completely different. But I also think it's really important to recognize those moments where we feel guilt and shame for tuning into our mental health.
And that's why she's the queen of nuance.
Yeah.
The thing that strikes me about like the hand moving and kind of switching is that there's this kind of give and take. And when you mentioned the ember, and I think about some of the folks that I coach and like even myself, in some ways the ember does not feel like it's enough because like there's so much happening, right? There's so much, and it feels like you have to have the like big fire, right? These big mobilizations, these big responses, or these big reactions, maybe not responses. And so like, how do we tune in enough so that the ember can feel like it's enough? You know what I mean? Like the way that I think about it is like, I don't know, this is kind of my half-baked thought about like how can it be enough, is that like it's enough for the long haul. You know, it's enough to like stay in, it's enough for you to sustain so that you can continue, and to recognize that like you're part of a larger group of embers, if you will. And so like you don't have to be the big flame because you're among other flames as well. And you don't have to do all of the things in order to like have done enough? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things here. One of the things is, and I love that you shared this about like, okay, sometimes there's like, oh, I need to do something now. I need to mobilize now. And my flame needs to be really big. And sometimes it is, right? I always say this. I personally, I'm a slow burn. I'm a slow burner. And then one of my good friends, she is a quick, hot, and fast burner. And she goes, and then she's got nothing. And then she go, and then she has nothing. But also, we need all of our burns. And exactly what you shared too. So that's like the first thing I want to share is everyone has a different role, but it is true. It's like if you think about a whole crowd and we're all burning, like we all have a gentle burn together. What does that move? What does that shift? What does that mobilize? It's also making me think about how I always say this when we have big movements, there's nothing wrong with the big movements. They're so needed, right? Like we need this slap in the face, wake up, splash of ice cold water in your face, jar you into understanding. We need that. We need those moments. And then sometimes those moments create more division. And so what do we do at that point? Right? It's like we need these moments because they bring so much truth into the world. But then how do we create a thread or a tapestry that is strong all underneath that foundation of supporting human dignity and human care, right? There's so many thoughts that are like percolating in my brain around this. And maybe I'm like, okay, pause for a moment.
I mean, I was just going to say that I love the idea that like we need all of these things, right? Like we need the marches, we need the activism, we need the social media kind of like calls for action, we need the mutual aid, we need the policy advocates, we need the housing folks, we need the labor folks, we need the like language access, like we need all of it. And I think that like as we think about this moment, like for someone like you and me, right? Like we're facilitators, we consult, we coach. We are not like frontline necessarily, but we are the weavers and the healers and like the supporters of the folks who are doing that. And like we need that too. So I'm just naming that.
Yeah. I remember seeing this, someone shared this video on TikTok once, and it was this woman talking about what do you do when you are trying to attend to all of the things that are going on? Like, I mean, the list is endless, right? And one of the things she said was get so local. Get so local. Pick something that you are passionate about. Be that thing. Put money into that thing. Bake brownies for that movement. Like go meet the people. Go talk to the neighbors. Like go get so hyper local about it. And I think there's really something about social media in this. I have such strong opinions about social media in many ways. Like amazing, you can spread information, love it. But one of the things I think is really interesting is when you're taking in information is you're not always understanding who it's for, the audience it's for, and the intention that it's for. For example, like if something's like, act now, do this now. And let's say you were like, oh, I just did something else that was really supportive to this community. I'm just like doing a very generalized example. I did something that was really valuable for this community. I just got off that today. I did this whole thing this morning. And then you go on Instagram or whatever, and you're like, someone's like, act now, do this now. And you're like, oh my God, okay. Yeah, okay, I got to do it. But I'm really tired. And do I do it now? And so I think there's something that's really interesting about the constant influx of information that we're getting when when we do get to slow down and say, oh, there are certain ways, exactly what you said. What's your role? Maybe, Patty, you remember the chart that, who is it that has that chart
Oh,
that
Deepa
talks about,
Ayer.
yes, like the chart of the different roles and how you show up and recognizing, like going back to the original question of what is our capacity? What does capacity look like? And I don't think capacity is linear or a fixed shape. I think capacity shifts and it changes. And it's recognizing, where am I resourced right now? And where do I get to show up?
Mm.
Right? And that's going to be different at different times.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I was just going to share, if I could give any advice for social media. It's like when you do see posts and you're like already doing stuff, or you don't, you freeze, right? You freeze and you do nothing. Maybe take one thing and say, ooh, this is an interesting idea. I'm going to look at this one thing. I'm not going to look at the other things. I'm going to look at this one thing. This is an interesting idea. Maybe this is an interesting way that I can support my community, or show up, or call Congress, or feed people, right? Choose one and know that one is okay for today.
Yeah. Yeah. And for folks who are like in the work, in their day to day, right? Like who are advocates or they are in social services, like they're already kind of taking action in that way. That like that's also that can be your one thing. Like it's cool
Yeah,
if you tend to your family and your needs afterwards as well.
exactly. Like I think about that. I'll like facilitate a workshop, or I'll do some sort of connection space or offering that's helping process emotional grief for multiracial bodies around, I just like, I'm showing up for the thing and I'm like, oh, right, this is my genius. This is where I get to show up in this work. Another friend of mine loves like gathering people together for like calling your senators, like writing letters. She loves organizing in that way. And I'm like, yes, I love that you love that. But I love that you shared that. It's like when you are in a role that you are giving so much and you are helping people process what is going on, like that is such a needed role in this whole journey towards liberation work.
Yeah. I mean, this moment is like it's just so hot
So
online.
hot.
It's like so like there has to be something that is going to shift because this is not it. And I think about like, when we think about liberation, like what is that? Like what are we moving towards?
Yeah.
Like what are we at the edge of?
I love this question because something that you and I were just kind of talking about even before this call was around, like, what do we envision, first of all? There's a part of it, what do we envision? I think one of the strong ones for me is human dignity, being able to see one another, witness one another, and care for one another. It's like, to me, it feels very simple. It's a care for your neighbor thing. Recognize humanity. That's it. To me, it feels so simple. And also at the same time, I notice when I get caught up, right? I notice when I get caught up in my own cultural trauma, things that I've learned, and I'm like, oh, whoa, I'm not seeing this person. There was a guy that walked up to my door to check my water today. And I was like, why are you coming up to my door, strange man? And I have a meeting. Like, we're going into this, and I was like, I have a meeting. I'm like taken off guard. Like, you're walking up to my door. And it was fine. But then I was like, oh, why was I weird? Like, I had that moment. I was like, afterwards, I was like, why was I so weird? Like, why are you at my door? Like a little gremlin coming out. Like, but I'm saying that because we're always in the process of recognizing how we can see another person or noticing where we're in survival. So when we're looking at transition into something that's new, into change for good, it's something that is not perfect. It's something that is messy. It is something that is trial and error. It is something that we get to try on. And I love this. Like, play is such an important part of the work that I do. And I think about that as when there's something I want to try, like, try it on, see how it fits. What does this look like? What is this? What's working? What's not working? And that it doesn't have to be perfect. Change isn't perfect. And one of the ways I also love to get inspired by is connecting to the land, listening to the messages of change in the land. What shifts? What changes? What is imperfect? What is uncertain? What is chaotic? What cycles repeat? I have like a little story. In the fall, my dear friend Kendra Adler, who's a somatic movement educator, and we taught a mini retreat in Malibu on the beach. And we called this workshop, or this mini retreat, it was a half-day thing. We called it a place to settle because we're like, so unsettling. Everything's unsettling, right? It's the thing we keep repeating. So it's called a place to settle. And the original intention was being with the sand, being with noticing how the sand settles, noticing how our bodies settle into the earth, right? That was the original intention. And then we got there and we started exploring, what does settling feel like? And what is unsettling? And then we're all exploring all these fun little somatic things. And then we get to some embodied sharing. And I remember the theme that came up for everyone is it wasn't about settling. It was about being in the unsettled. And one of the things that we were exploring in my own practice when we were part of this mini retreat, one of the things we were exploring was how I was listening to the ocean and listening to the waves crashing. And I started moving with the waves crashing, and you'd feel this like the sounds were big and small, and then they were never the same. That was something I noticed. It wasn't like a wave coming in and out and in and out like rocking. It was like big, small, little, sliding, up, down, sideways. And I was dancing like with this sound and moving with this sound. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, like every time I want to calm down, there's something else. Every time I want to settle in, there's a new thing. There's a new wave. There's a new big impulse. And it was such this message of, silly one, you're just a little animal. How could you control me? How could you control this? All you can do is be in these waves, be in these transitions, try on the shape, see it go sideways. And it kind of takes a little bit of this pressure to always find the exact resolution, the exact answer, right?
I love the idea that you came, like the intention was around settling, and like you kind of got to this place where it was like, okay, we're actually just in the movement of the unsettling, and that is what is available to us, and that's what we're kind of swimming with. And I'm curious how, like, if you were to now think to this moment, there's some like real unsettling that's happening, right? Like real harm. And like there's also the kind of like infinite futures of where we go from here. Yeah, how do you almost like what do you copy and paste? What do you like take from that experience, and like what does that mean for the moment that we're in now and the change that we are moving towards in this
Mm.
time?
Well, this is actually a really good reminder for me because there's a family across the street that is a family that I've exchanged cilantro with, and they gave me guava. They're a Spanish speaking family, and I I've also given their kids lightsabers. So I've had some exchanges, but one of the things is I don't know them very well. We wave to each other and they're very kind and very sweet. But one of the things is I'm like, "Ooh, I don't know your story. I don't know your story. I don't know where your family works. I don't know what situation. I don't want to assume that you are in a tricky one right now with what's going on with ice." But then I had this feeling where I was like, I just want to bake them brownies. I want to bake them brownies, bring them some food, connect, and check in, get to know them. And I had that feeling. I thought about this like 2 days ago, and now I'm like, bake the brownies, Malia, bake the brownies. Because I think there's something about getting to know your neighbors and supporting your neighbors. And of course, there's big things that you can do, but get to know your neighbors. Get to know the people you live right next door to. If you don't want to assume, make them some food. Just let them know you're here, right? Make your other neighbors food too. I think going into 2026, I'm having this strong urge to just be with food, like feeding people. I'm like, I just want to feed people. I think I've named that like 3 times already. Like, bake some baked goods for someone. And so I think there's like, if we're talking about the micro, I mean that's one thing, right? It could be many other things, many other ideas of how to change what's happening. But I think you are fighting for something and letting people know that you see them and that you believe in them and believe in me, see me, and also that they're not alone. You're not alone. I'm not alone. We're not alone. We're not alone in this journey, and we will be next to each other in this journey. So I think there's an element of not separating yourself from what your neighbors are experiencing and what you're experiencing yourself. And then of course there's like so many things to address, but I think when it comes to like being in the chaos, being in the uncertainty, it's like what's needed. A hand, a hug, food, water, like knowing that you're taken care of.
Yeah. And I think that is so like counter to the thing that we named earlier, which is like all of the things, like do all of the organizing and the calling and the da, 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 being like so tapped into what people need and feeling connected is like it's action, but as you're saying that I can feel myself like relaxing. Like it's almost like, or maybe it is, that in doing that, like in connecting, we're also resourcing.
Hmm. I actually have an interesting money thing that has like come up around donations. Like somebody shared recently that like a personal family that they wanted to gather funds for because of ice. And I'm like, yes, like that. I love that. Like when there's a personal connection. And I noticed this feeling. I have a hard time. It's very vulnerable, Malia. I've never shared this publicly, but I have a hard time donating to organizations. And I was reflecting on this the other day, and I was like, why? Like, why do I have such a hard time? And I thought it was scarcity. I thought it was resource. But then I realized it's something that I don't know what the money is being put to. That feels like really personally, feels very like, what are you doing with my money? Is it going to go to something that's good? I have no idea. Like, I noticed there was a trust element there. Like, am I putting my money to something I trust? And I was reflecting on this because I love reflecting on money story. But I was reflecting on like what builds trust. What is the exchange? What is the understanding? And I think that's why when I say, like, when we're discussing and you feel your body settle, it's like, cook something for your neighbor. When we feel that in our body, it's like, then I know, like, this neighbor, I know this family, I know these families, I know these people. And because we're online and we're scrolling on our phones and we're only looking at what social media or the news is saying, it keeps us in our homes isolated sometimes.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about potentially meeting up because I'll be in town. And the idea, like you mentioned, you're like, oh, I have to leave the house. And you're like, oh no, I want to leave the house. This is actually good.
Yeah.
And same. Like I think about like after this, I have to do some errands for my trip. And I'm like, oh man, I gotta put on my coat and my big old boots because it's cold. Yeah, it's cold today. And I'm like, oh wait, it's actually probably good to be out and like talking to the woman who's gonna be doing my eyelashes or my eyebrows. And like that is actually just nourishing. And there's something about like food and just like taking care of our animal selves. And then we're just little animals.
We're just little animals. I'm getting this image right now. Do you remember those like stories? I don't remember what it was, but there's like mice and rabbits, and they go into a little rabbit hole and they like bake bread for each other and like drink tea. Like, I feel like this is a childhood world. Or even like Winnie the Pooh. I'm just like thinking about these like, oh, we're just, animals in 1,000 acre, 100 acre wood or whatever. Like, we're just little animals. And what does our animal body want? Safety, security. When we don't have that, what do we need? Community, food, connection, knowing that we're not alone. That we're resourced, and not assuming that of another person, right? Like, just be real. Like,
speaking of assumptions, and maybe this is an assumption, but like for some reason I'm being reminded of this question that you have stated, which is, in your liberation work, what oppression techniques do you use? And
this question.
Yes, tell me more. Like what does this bring up for you?
So I remember the first time I heard this question, I think it was 2020. And it was a time of speaking loudly for good causes. Yes. Also, a time where we were in a state of, if you're not doing this, you are immoral, you're bad, you're not a good human. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh. Like, I remember noticing that. Or like kind of this feeling of, if you don't agree with me, then you are literally, people still say this, a trash human. And when I think about this in our liberation work, what oppressive techniques do we use when we're calling people trash humans, right? And it's not to say that, yes, some values are really validating for human beings to be alive, and some values are not. But name that, right? Name that. But I think it's really important to recognize those moments where we create division and hatred towards ideas and beliefs that we don't agree with. We can disagree with the ideas, we can disagree with the beliefs, and then we can start to communicate. And this is, again, my very long term. I say my activism is deep rooted, it's deep seated. It's like I'm on the 200-year plan. Not everyone's on that plan. And I'm so happy that you're not on that plan, because we need the 2-year plan, people. We need you. I'm on the 200-year plan, but it's like, okay, what is we're seeing this, right? In the last 8 years, the last 15 years, the division that has been created it's just like creating more and more hatred and more like when one thing happens on one side, then everyone hates that thing. And one thing happens on the other side, then everyone hates that thing. And then what happens at the end of the day is it's more about who's hating the other than what's actually the problem. Also, this is fascinating to me, is where actually are shared values that we're not even talking about because we're in hatred.
Yeah. There's this fascinating phenomenon that happened in New York City where a big chunk of Trump voters voted for Mamdani.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, what's that about? And it was really this idea of like, we are prioritizing, or at least the campaign is prioritizing what people need. Like, we're talking about affordability. We're talking about like people being able to take the bus and people being able to have childcare and like literal, just like everyday people's needs.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, like that is something that the rhetoric of Trump, like he does do that really well. And I think that's why people resonate with it, because they're like, yeah, that's what I need. Like I need someone who's going to make sure that like my eggs are not $20 for a dozen, even though that's what happened.
It was really like there were $20 dozen eggs.
Yeah. I was here in New Jersey.
What?
It happened. It definitely happened.
No.
But like,
that's a good thing to fight for. Affordable eggs.
Listen, affordability in general. But like that's what I mean with like shared values, right? Is like it's this idea of like, who are we fighting for and what are we fighting for and what are we valuing and prioritizing, and what is going to bring us together. I'm also reminded of this video of Bernie Sanders going to, I think it was West Virginia, which has a deep, deep history of voting blue, because a lot of like the labor movement and the history of the labor movement is like so deep in West Virginia. And if I'm not talking about the right state, then my bad.
Someone tell us.
Yeah, someone tell us. Let us know. But he was there talking about like affordability, and then the people who he met with were like, I had no idea that this is what you stood for, because my perception and like what I've been told about you was that you're this like raging socialist. And he's like, well, what do you think socialism is about?
I find that so fascinating. I remember my husband used to say this all the time, like when there was the Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton time. And I remember he would say, like, if Bernie Sanders was the Democratic candidate, then so many people would have voted for Bernie Sanders that voted for Trump. Because I think people wanted to be heard. This is also something people want to be heard. Mm-hmm. They want to see that they have a voice, that they can be recognized. One of my dear friends, Julia Firestone, we would joke around how we would go. She lives in New York, I live in LA, and we'd go places in the center of the country together and be like, oh, just us as the coastal elite. Like, we joke around about it because there's such a perception that the coastal elite has. Like, everything circulates around the coastal elite, right? Mm-hmm. When there's a whole part of this country where people want to be witnessed and understood. And I think Trump spoke to that. Yeah. And that's why people are followers of him and all of the things that happen in this time. But I love that you brought that up about Bernie Sanders. It's like, oh, okay, what are our shared values? What are the things that actually we do relate on? What are identity politics? I love how we came in with what's present right now. This conversation became so political. And I love how before we got on this recording, we did not say one thing political. But I was like just thinking about that, like this became political conversation around of whose side are you on? It's become a game with people's lives being affected.
Yes, with like entire like armies of bots creating rage bait, right? Like with people's
Yes.
jobs to create like incendiary content just to keep you scrolling and angry, but not in
Yeah.
movement.
That's why I can't do social media. I have so many thoughts about social media.
Yeah, like I think about some of the things that like I will see and I'm like, okay, this like pissed me off, right? And then I'm like, what was this supposed to do? If the only thing that it was supposed to do was to make me feel like, oh my God, like that person is so dumb, then like, is that actually useful for me?
Mm,
Is that actually
yeah.
like adding to my ability to move forward? Is it resourcing me at all?
Yeah.
And for some people, maybe yes, right?
Yeah.
Like that is also what adds to big reactions and the big like marches and the big like those things, right? Like
Yeah.
that anger, which is
Absolutely.
righteous, but also
Mm-hmm.
what a toll it takes on us.
Yes. And I think it's also noticing where we block conversation.
Ooh.
And this
Mm-hmm.
this is like on both sides, right? Like there are all these articles coming out around like what's happening in Minnesota of like, okay, should this ICE person be arrested? Like, was this legal? Was it not? And instead of like having those conversations, I mean, of course, like this is a public opinion. Public opinion has like, I mean, in my opinion, strong views of what should be happening. But it's like, what conversations are being blocked? What conversations are stopping? What conversations are not being had out of assumption or idea? And instead of actually seeing like what's just, like what's true, what's here, what are we witnessing right in front of us? What's creating who's creating a narrative? Who's creating a story? And but it's interesting to think like exactly what you shared. It's like, is this blocking my conversation? Is this blocking my curiosity? Is this blocking my understanding? One of the projects that I am a part of is called the Belonging Ambiguity Project, and it's for multiracial bodies. And we've done a couple cohorts that have been on the embodiment of multiracial experience. And lately I was connecting with one of my co-facilitators, and we're like thinking about how we want to do this next version of it. And one of the things we're talking about is division in the body. And how do we see multiple sides? How do we see multiple layers? How do we be bridge makers for connection, for understanding? I'm saying all these things as a 200 years process. Like I'm like, this is work. This is work. This is long-term work. Long-term work. But I will hold the torch. And if you want to hang out, we can go down that path together. But also hold your torches. I love your other torches.
Yeah. Like the torch of like, let's respond to this particular need right now is also
Right
important.
now.
And
Exactly.
so is the 200-year torch.
Yep.
I don't want to end this conversation without asking you the thing that I ask everyone who comes onto this little platform, which is around possibility. And it's about your younger self. So I'm curious, what do you have or do, or like what's in your present day to day that a younger version of you did not know was possible?
I think growing up, I felt like I always needed to merge myself into something that was not me. I think growing up mixed, I never really felt like I belonged into a certain group. It was actually funny the other day. I was talking to somebody about being mixed. And if like someone called me white, I'd be like, mm. And if someone called me Asian, I'd be like, mm. And I'm both. But there's something like that feels like I don't have a response. Like I'm mixed. I have a multitude of experience. And I think when I was younger, I think I just always felt like I needed to be something else. And now that I'm older, I just love being myself. I I love just being exactly who I am, just being silly, just being here for joy and tenderness and love and spaciousness. I loved theater when I was young, and I went to my high school had like a theater reunion, alumni theater reunion, and we just did musical theater karaoke. It was great. It was so much fun. And I remember how self-conscious I felt when I was in high school, even though I was like, one of the big theater people. I was so self-conscious. And I was like, I love being in my mid-30s and singing musical theater and making a mistake and like being like, whatever, I don't care. I'm 35. There's nothing you can do to me. Like I just had this feeling of like your opinion doesn't matter. So it better be great because like we're adults. It was such an interesting feeling, and I had so much fun singing. And yeah, I think that's just how I feel right now. I love the person that I have become and just the comfort that I have in my skin.
I love that. And I got chills midway. And that share makes so much sense given the conversation that we just had around like you're carrying this 200-year torch and you're talking about like having a little simmer instead of a big old flame. And I think it takes a pretty like high level of comfort and what Beyonce would call coziness, right? Like in your body, in yourself, in like who you are, to know like I don't have to be like all of the things. I can just be this one thing that I am, or these multiple things that I am.
Yes, absolutely. I love cracking jokes and being silly in a professional setting, and it surprises people. And I'm like, yeah, we're just little animals. Kind of going back to that.
Animals.
We're just little animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You're a silly human. That's professional.
Why not?
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to next? Where can folks connect with you? How can folks be more engaged with you? Perhaps in Hawaii?
Yes. So one of my dreams, so my mom's side of the family is from Hawaii, and I have dreamt to gather beautiful human beings there to explore land-based relationship and somatic relationship. So my dear friend who I mentioned before, Kendra Adler, and I have a retreat coming up in March 4th through the 10th. And this retreat is all for people who have been holding others and are looking to be held. This is a space for witnessing the land as a teacher and being in the practice to be resourced. This is on the Big Island. And Patty, have you been to the Big Island?
Mm-hmm.
The energy is fierce. It is the newest of the islands. The volcano is alive. And there's this visceral, transformative energy that's there. So this retreat is really to listen to the land as teacher, to be at the edge of transition and resource so that when we are coming to our work, when we're coming back to land relationship, when we're being resourced, we have a foundation, we have a piece that we get to carry, and also the way that we get to tune into being stewards for the land that we are on, connecting to our own indigeneity, connecting to where we are in the land that we live. And I'm so excited. So you can find more information on my website about the retreat. It's called Phenomena. I have a course called Money Play that is a somatic exploration of money as relationship. It's really recognizing the areas where we feel blocked, in freeze, in stagnation, in the ways that we want to avoid money. And it's really a playground to witness all of those aspects of our money story, our ancestral story, of connecting to protection and control, of money as water, of time, of when do we feel generous, when are we over generous, when is generosity blocked, and also how we are in the act of reciprocity and mutual aid and care. So it's a whole embodiment land. So that's going to be in the spring, and TBD on our multiracial belonging ambiguity project for 2026. That you are the first to hear our inspirations.
I love it. I love it. I loved this conversation. I love our conversations. It always, I think last time we spoke, we said it feels like a little like we're just sitting on the couch. We got our little teas. We're like sharing a little blanket. And we're just little animals.
Yep.
Talking about politics.
Animals. Talking about politics. This is how I want to get all of my political information.
Truly. No more scrolling. Only podcasts
yes,
with little animals.
Exactly.
All right, y'all. Thank you
so
for
much.
listening. Thank you, Malia, for being here. And we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to What We Made Possible. I really hope this episode resonated. As a coach, I always end with action steps. And so I invite you to do something, which is to pause and ask yourself, what resonated? What am I taking away? And what's possible for me and my community now? If you liked this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. It helps so much. Thanks again.